Hey everybody. Welcome to Game Audio Hour number 109. This is our weekly podcast where what do we do? I can't remember what we do. Vince, help me. What do we do?
Oh man, we talk
Oh,
about the latest and greatest in audio developments.
we
We
discuss all
talk
things
about
game audio, from creative
yeah.
ideas to latest techniques, project experiences to audio secrets. Here's where you'll find your in-depth coverage and opinions related to game audio. I will stop saying that sometime. Hey Vince, why is that? Why do shows have a saying like that at the beginning? Somebody told me that you have to do it. You just have to keep doing it,
Oh
and I
man,
don't know why.
I don't know. I think it's good to sort of keep us focused and get people to recognize what's going on. Um,
Recognize.
well, there are a bunch of people who have been here and have watched and listened ever since the very first episode, but then there are people who tune in on a whim and are like, what is this thing? I wonder what is this thing. I wish at some point they would actually explain what it is they're talking about.
Yeah.
It's kind of like those, like sports radio guys who spend 3 hours talking about the game and they'll only tell you the score of the game once.
Oh,
You
that's
know?
so true. That's so true. That is
That's
annoying.
really frustrating. So, it's good to say that every now and then. And, beginning of an episode is not a bad time to do it.
So how you been? We've been off and on for the past couple months. Like, not a lot. We've been show
Yeah,
here, show there. Busy as hell.
it has been pretty busy. I think I made a remark that 108 is an interesting number. It's a tough hump of a number to get over.
Oh, yeah.
It actually bears a very serious burden. It's not a prime number, because it is an even number, no way. But it splits two prime numbers, 107 and 109. And that is some serious responsibility there to keep those prime numbers at bay.
It is. Speaking of it, Mark something. Hey, Mark Scott, our special guest.
Hello, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm quite adequate, thank you.
We're going to be, for anybody watching the show, Mark is, oh my God, Mark. Do I brag upon you in the history of your game experience from...
Nothing to brag about.
Well, yeah, you're going to be modest, but I mean, I know I'm a fanboy because of your Microprose days. I'm just going to put that out there. I'm sure Vince has already looked at your resume.
Oh,
If you're twitching, by the way, it's because there's insects, bugs flying around. So looking like that. It's a bug.
I remember quite fondly those FLV animations from World Circuit.
Oh.
I played the heck out of that game. I'm
embarrassed by those now. So look at them now and just like, oh my god, what was I thinking?
Well, what was the technology back then? What did you have?
Well, 3D it wasn't. Yeah, it's 3D Studio, but it wasn't Max.
was it like release 10 at the time,
280,
maybe?
386, and it was 1991. So it wasn't fast. And those were rendered at 32200, I think.
No, wow.
Oh yeah.
256 colors.
Oh,
Wow, that's amazing! 256 colors and full screen video. That's fantastic.
hey, Mark, did you always do art in games, or because I know you're a musician as well? Did you do audio?
I've done some audio for games. I've done. I did bits and pieces. I played. I wrote a little theme tune. For like a little. What would you call it for a logo? What are those called?
Oh yeah, I don't know.
Interesting. That's for the LucasArts. I did a LucasArts
The
one.
Splash.
Whoa, you did a LucasArts one? I didn't know
I
that.
did for X-Wing versus TIE Fighter. I'd kind of forgotten about that.
Oh, cool.
Because we didn't have anything from them, so someone said, "Oh, all these, all the LucasArts games have this logo thing at the start, and we didn't have anything to use, so we just made one."
Oh, that's fun.
And I did stuff for the Tony Awards. I did a couple of things, and voiceovers as well. And what else? I've done bits of music all over. Oh yeah, I did bits of guitar playing for. There was a special move that one of the skaters did. And he had a Fender Stratocaster, which I also made, and I did. I played the guitar for that. But that's it.
I didn't know that.
Major.
Fantastic. Well, we're going to be leaning on your understanding of history and video game culture and consoles and everything else that starts with a C that can come into my head. But in the meantime, being a musician, you might find this interesting. Native Instruments released Complete 11 today, right?
Complete 11.
And you can buy it today, can't you? Because I didn't even know it was
I'm
coming.
not sure. I actually think it's just one more month.
Oh,
So in September, yeah, scheduled availability is early September 2016, but all these announcements are here right now.
gotcha. Gotcha.
Man,
I was just looking at the price, the upgrade price, and I thought, well, if I can already hit the buy button, I guess it's available, but it won't be coming for a little while, huh?
I think that's what is going on. I saw a bunch of September 1st dates.
So what do you think
Yeah.
of the package?
Wow. I mean, there are some interesting things in there. I'm actually still on Complete 8, so it's been a while for me. And there's a lot of cool things in there. But I wonder if that will actually be redundant with all of the other things that I've got. It seems like the really big thing now with Complete, because if you've been following Native Instruments lately, they've been doing a whole lot of work when it comes to the symphonic libraries. So
Right.
they put out their own brass and strings and winds. And with Complete Ultimate, you also get these Symphony Essentials, which are basically like those packages in a cut sample rate form.
Mm-hmm.
So Symphony Series Brass Ensemble, it says here that if you get that full version, 29 gigs. The Essentials version that comes with Complete is actually rather less. It's about 4 gigs
Ooh.
of sample data. So it's definitely cut down, and I guess that makes sense.
That's
4 mic positions in the full version goes down to 1 mic position there. I think the big thing that really got me is all of these Essentials versions, they don't have true legato. So no true legato on brass ensemble, brass solo, or string ensemble, all the Essentials versions. Which is like, oh man, I'm not sure I could do that. And I actually wonder if that's really a good thing for people who are coming into Complete thinking, oh, I'm going to either get Complete for the first time, or I'm going to do a nice big update to Complete, and I'm going to get all this symphonic library stuff as well. Not having true legato seems like a really big hit to me.
Yeah, I'm on 10. I always stay with it, and I get the big package, whatever it's called, complete, whatever it's
Complete
called.
Ultimate, yeah.
Ultimate, yeah. And that's where I was leaning towards with this. I was seeing a bunch of, so I'm going to just spill my beans right away. I'm not thinking this is a great thing, frankly. I'm not interested in a new synthesizer. We got thousands of those. They put out they're releasing some new thing along the lines of mouth and those kind of like performance synthesizers that they use, finger and mouth and all that stuff. And I don't use those at all, so I don't need another one of those.
Mm-hmm.
And what I do like is to get nice orchestral sample libraries, and they're telling me that I'm going to go from 29 gigs to 4 gigs, so that means that they have 25 gigs of unessential orchestra that you're paying for ordinarily. That seems a little bit testy for me. I think for a company like this that is this late to the orchestra library game on a serious level, because they've had orchestra library stuff, sorry, I keep saying library. They've had stuff like, what's this one up here called? I'm just looking for it. I can't find it. Oh, here you go, like session strings and things like that, which actually I use session strings a lot because it's got the Motown flavor, which I really like.
Yeah.
But other than that, they're kind of coming late to the game. And I'm really disappointed that if you get Complete Ultimate, you still don't get the full orchestral library stuff that they're doing. That's really where they're selling me. They've got another instrument called India. I don't use any of that. I don't use any of their localized kind of instruments.
Mm-hmm.
I am interested in Una Corda, which I think is pretty interesting.
Yeah, they have a lot of pianos this time around. They're giving you Una Corda, which is a custom 1-string per key piano instead of the typical 2 or 3 strings.
Yeah.
They got let's see, the Gentleman, the Grandeur, the Maverick. They have one that's the Giant, the world's biggest upright piano. Okay, so they got a lot of pianos.
Yeah. And that's been there.
They got here?
The Giant came out a few versions ago.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, same with the ones that you mentioned before. The only new piano they've added to this list, as far as Complete is concerned, is Una Corda. It came out a while ago, but it wasn't. It was after Complete 10, I think.
Okay.
Mark,
But I
what
guess
are you
we're
gonna use?
still
Are you
on
gonna get
Contact
this, Mark?
5.
Oh,
What's
sorry.
that?
Are you going to? Well, actually, before I throw to you, Mark, Vince, you make a good point because you're on 8, so some of this stuff is a real big step for you.
Yeah, I mean, some of the stuff would be. I am somewhat interested in that form synthesizer, but yeah, they do have massive and reactor and absinthe, and you could do so many things with those 3 things. And really, it's just a matter of pick and choose. Like, oh, I'm doing this type of sound using absinthe. Another guy does the exact same type of sound, except mostly using reactor. And now we've got this other tool here with Form, the transformative sample tracking synthesizer, which has some cool little videos and UI interface stuff. But again, it's another process to go through. I wonder how much I really care about this right now, because I do have my own processes right now for doing my synthy type stuff.
Yeah, synthesizers, software synthesizers don't get me turned on. I like the hardware variety, but I tell you what, there are some things that they release that I can't do without. Transient Master is one of them. I use that on everything. I like their solid bus, their solid dynamic, solid EQ stuff. That's great. Replica is a really, really nice delay. Supercharger is basically, I've been using it kind of like, have you used, oh, darn it, there it goes. Well, there's a software I can't think of at the moment that loads up in Contact. It's got a giant, it's a sound effects library that distorts things and makes it very compressed and distorted. It's got this giant button, and you turn it all the way to the right, and it goes to punish mode. I'm sure somebody will know what that is. So anyway, so when you turn that knob and it goes to punish mode, you end up like really distorting and compressing things, and instead you have to load it into Contact. You got to do the whole business. So what I like to do is just load up their Supercharger, and that's made by a different company, but it kind of works the same way. You can take that knob and just turn the hell out of it. So there's that. I'm not so sure I want to buy this though from 10 to 11.
Yeah, well, I mean, it does seem like there's a lot of stuff for me. I'm 3 versions back right now, so maybe I should actually consider doing something like this.
Mark, are you using Native Instruments Complete?
No, I use Propellerhead Reason.
Oh, Reason.
Uh-oh, got a Reason guy.
Hey, Reason's great.
Ah, see? Yeah, no, it's fine. And I'm on, mine's about 4 years old. I haven't upgraded it in a long time. So there you go.
Do you spend your time writing in Reason the whole time?
Well, on the rare occasions when I actually do any recording, then yes, that's what I use. But I haven't done any for a while. Not since I wrote the Baked Beans song, which I'm sure you've heard.
You should put a link in the chat to Baked Beans so people can.
Well, it's on SoundCloud.
Well, there you go. Put it on SoundCloud.
But it's like it's kind of a take on a. I shouldn't talk too much about my music because I'm in the presence of you guys, but it's a take on sort of British musical type. It's hard to in the sort of vein of My Fair Lady type stuff. Lots of chirpy Cockneys singing and dancing type thing.
Nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm looking through the complete 11 included products. You know, I noticed that they didn't put up, here's what's new. That tells me, oh no, I'm sorry, I'm in the wrong tab. There is a what's new tab. Okay, so you get Form, you get Reactor 6, but just updates, I guess, because you get Reactor 6 anyway.
Right.
So it's just a newer version of Reactor, a newer version of Contact, Una Corda, which is new, Session Guitarist, which, of course, just call me. Why do you need that? Or call Mark. Discovery Series India, which I don't really use any kind of that. Kinetic Metal, I have that already, but maybe I bought that separate from 10. That is really kind of cool, actually. You can set up these these kind of automated metal sounds to go off by choosing numbers, and these metal bins and sound effects happen. It's really hard to describe. You have to check it out. Check out the demo. Replica's great. I have that as well. I guess I bought that outside of 10. So not a lot new, but they want me to spend. Oh wait, I'm not looking at complete. Well, I think the upgrade for complete, the big version is $400, and the complete smaller version is $200. That's too much money for not getting enough stuff, don't you think?
Yeah.
That's a lot. You
Yeah,
know,
complete ultimate is a $400 upgrade, $399. Oof.
I mean that's not bad. You know, I mean, I don't know. Yeah, I'm actually looking at this chart that I just pasted in the web on the chat, and I'm seeing how much I can get that's new from where I am with Complete 8, and it's actually a pretty decent amount of stuff.
Yeah, well, the full
Yeah.
prices are a complete 11. This is so at one point when you get into complete, you got to pay the full bundle. And that might be where it's smart here. Like if you get complete 11, it's $600. The next year you can upgrade from complete 11 to complete ultimate 12 for, I'm assuming, like $300, $400.
Hmm.
That's not a bad jump. If you want a complete ultimate 11, you would have to spend $1,200. If you want just complete 11, you spend $600. It's twice the price for the ultimate.
Yeah. No, this is a lot of. Jeez.
We want to love
Upgrading
it.
every year. You know, I've stopped upgrading. I remember a while back when I decided, okay, I'm not going to upgrade every year for my DAW. Same thing with Complete. Am I going to upgrade every year? You know, I've been on Complete 8 for a while. You know, and there are so many other really good things that are out there. Like you mentioned Kinetic Metal, and I'm thinking, oh yeah, Kinetic Metal would be cool. It's definitely a new for me sort of thing. But I
Yeah.
think about all the other third-party things that I've got, whether they be contact instruments or separate VSTs, there's definitely options that I already have right now for that, you know, making your own sort of cool metal percussion type things. And maybe I should just spend some time on those as opposed to, you know, spending some more money.
It is tough, and they are shooting for that yearly upgrade. I don't know, Mark. Do they do this with graphics software as well? Is there like yearly upgrades for Studio Max or something?
And then I think we're about 3 years ahead now with Maya, isn't it? I think it's up to 2018 or something now. It's ridiculous.
Oh, really?
I might be exaggerating, but it's certainly ahead of the actual year. It's kind of like cars now, you know. It's like, oh, it's a 2017 model. Well, it's weird because I'm in 2016. So how does that work? Awesome.
But do they do it every year?
Yeah, definitely. In Max and Maya, they definitely do it. I'm not so sure about well, Unity, they update like every other week.
Yeah.
You know, they don't call it, you know, a full update, but it's certainly, I think the latest is 5.4.6. You know, and I think where I'm teaching at the moment is they're on 5.4.3 there. So we have to, every time we do a Unity class, we have to reinstall the latest.
Yeah. But at least they're not charging us $500.
Constantly updating for whatever reason to keep you buying, to keep you spending, splashing out your couple of $100 every now and then.
Do you think it relates to how the economy's doing, how much they include for these yearly updates? I know that I don't want to upgrade to 11 because I know that for 12 I'll probably have the same price to go from 10 to 12, and 11 isn't offering me enough to really step up for $400.
I think the only way to see if it had anything to do with the economy was to sort of backtrack it over various economic periods. So if you went during the crash period, the Great Recession era, which was at least 4 years long, and see if there were many upgrades came out. But I suspect with software, they just keep putting it out there anyway and see who buys.
There are some geniuses in there that are deciding how much to include in the package compared to how much they want to charge for the package. And
sometimes they're really worth it anyway. You just look at it and go, really, that's all I'm going to get for that money? You know?
Mm-hmm. Well, that's why I am, but I think, Vince, you might have a good step up.
Yeah. You know, waiting 2-3 years, it seems like that's a nice chunk of new stuff you get there.
Hey, can you confirm, Vince, that your price for the upgrade to Complete 11 is the same from where you are on 8 to 11 as it would be for somebody going from 10 to 11? I'm looking at the 10 to 11 prices, but I'm wondering if those prices are all the way across.
Let me just look quickly here.
You might have to sign into your account.
On that
Yeah.
subject, I've noticed that they won't
Yeah.
let you upgrade. They will just say, "Oh no, you have to buy the new version because you're 3 versions behind." Which lame.
Yeah, if I'm upgrading from complete 8, it's 600. If I was upgrading from complete 7, though, it would be 1,000.
Oh, so they charge more for how far behind you are.
Yes.
Ah.
But it's just tiered. Like, upgrading from complete 8 for 600 is the same as upgrading from complete 11 non-ultimate.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
Hey, did they show the price for going from 9 to 11? Because I'll be going from 10 to 12. I'm curious what I'm in for.
No, it's the exact same. 9 and 10, it also lists $5.99.
So the secret here is you don't have to you could upgrade every 2 years and still pay the same price as a person who's upgrading every year, right?
Surely all versions are non-ultimate. I mean, until they stop making it, the last one ultimate.
True.
Well, I'll tell you, when I see the product list, this is not the ultimate because, frankly, and this is what gets me, they've been going crazy, as Vince said at the beginning of the show, releasing this orchestral software that is really quite large, and for the complete ultimate, you're getting a watered-down version of that library, and that seems shameful to me. They really should include
That's incomplete and not ultimate.
False advertising. Complete. Hey, on that note, let's talk about a really cool software developer named Isotope who covers us for the show. They sponsor us. Thanks, Isotope. Woo! Did you know that, Mark, that Isotope thinks we're pretty special?
I know they think you have special needs.
They are correct. So they got a new thing, this 4-vocal engine, and we are going to be doing a giveaway next week. So everybody pay attention to the show next week because we're going to do our thing where we put up a word and we tell you what to tweet, and if you tweet it, you could win some software. We don't know exactly what we're going to do yet because they've released a lot of stuff. So I want to talk to them first and see if I can get you the most that they're willing to give. But anyway, thank you, Isotope, for covering the show. We appreciate it very much. And that is all about Isotope because I'm really bad at those kind of like segues and promotions.
All right, Isotope.
But you know what else we're going to talk about is, and I'm trying to get to a page that's not showing up for me, is the history of games. And more specifically for my interest is the history of game consoles. I'm just going to get right to it and say Intellivision is the best console. Then you and Vince can talk amongst yourselves, and I'll be back.
What?
Well,
the Intellivision, seriously.
The Intellivision. Yeah.
I was never really that much into consoles, and although we did have one, we had my dad brought us an Atari 2600, which is of course the ultimate cliche, I suppose. And that is, I think everyone remembers that one. Intellivision, I remember the adverts on TV, and they were really good. But I don't think it didn't last very long. They did it in television. That's the thing. It wasn't a laptop. It didn't last long.
It's still hooked up to my television.
You still got one?
I do.
You bought a new one?
No, I've still got mine.
Oh,
Did you use that as punishment for Bridget?
No, shame on you. It's
no,
the coolest thing ever.
You have to use your imagination. Yeah.
I still have my Pong as well hooked up to my television, so don't push your luck, or you will be challenged to a Pong competition next time you visit my house.
Curiously, that you should mention this, I was actually teaching history of animation, and strange combination actually, really, but history of animation and video games. So I covered a lot of this stuff. Rather, probably 2/3 of the class is about Atari, because they just owned the industry throughout most of the 70s, I guess. But yeah, we talked a lot about Pong. We talked about Ralph Baer and how he came up with the idea in the first place back in the 60s. And that one led to being I've forgotten the name of the console now after all of that.
The Odyssey.
Odyssey, that's right, Ralph Baer, Odyssey. So
What's
the Odyssey.
The company? Magnavox, right?
Yeah. So he wanted to sell that thing for $19.99, and it ended up going out for $99.99. But the clever thing that Atari did, if everyone hasn't fallen asleep already yet, is they did the thing of selling the razor cheap and selling the blades for a huge profit. So it cost them very little to make those cartridges, and then they sold them for something like $39 each. And this is back in the mid-70s. Wow. $49. So, but they worked straight away, whereas the Odyssey cartridges they literally had dip switches on them, it was just or rather they pressed dip switches when they went into the slot. So there was basically one game that was built into the Magnavox, into the Odyssey, and the dip switches were what changed how it worked. So it was a very different system to Atari. So there you go.
What was the earliest console then? It was Max Baer's Odyssey?
Well, you can go really far back, and there were attempts at making video games using the CRTs. Back in 1947, when TVs were first being sold after the war, there was something like somewhere between 20 and 40 hours of television per month. So these enormous boxes with tiny little screens were sat pretty much doing nothing for most of the time. So some engineers at RCA and a few other companies were going, hey, you could actually make something happen with a CRT where you could kind of control it using the remote control or whatever it was, and you could have a little space game. And then there were other attempts at games in the 1950s on computers, which were places like MIT and some computing companies decided, hey, this would be a really good way of showing off our hardware and our mathematical skills by making a game. So they'd have open days, kids would come in, they'd play tennis on an oscilloscope. On an oscilloscope, you've got one of those, right? So imagine a little tennis game on your oscilloscope, and then you go, oh, look, this is showing off our... Don't care about the maths actually, just want to play tennis. No, but would our math... No, we're not interested. Just want to play tennis. And so I guess they stopped doing that because they got all sulky because people weren't interested in their programming skills. They were only interested in playing the games. So that was that. Oh yeah, but what about a math? Shut up! I'm playing tennis.
I do that today.
That's how it was.
It's called
And those things don't exist anymore. They got dismantled and repurposed. Just imagine that. You had this original computer with one of these tennis games on. That would be so fantastic. But no, they got reused. Yeah.
So Atari did its thing. But did Atari kill the arcade? No.
Did they kill the arcade machine? No, Atari were heavily invested in arcade machines. But
arcade was before the 2600, right? And then
it was all around about the same period. So Atari were in home consoles. They were in before that, and still during the same time they were in arcade machines, and they were also still doing pinball. They invented the wide pinball machines because they used to be kind of all the skinny pinball machines, and they decided, while they were developing their first console, they were invested a load of money in pinballs and pinball arcades to help fund them. See, and that's because Mr. Atari himself, what's his name? Why have I blanked on his name?
No, that's not Bushnell.
Bushnell. So Bushnell, when he was going through college, gambled away all his college money, and so he ended up working at state fair, I think, or a county fair. It's a permanent fair anyway. So he was working on the Midway, and he learned all these skills about, selling people games and convincing them to play, and about all the games themselves. And there was pinball on the Midway, and there were all kinds of games. So that's one of the reasons he became such a great huckster. And I hope that's not too insulting a word, but anyway, he became a really good salesman, and he learned a lot about gameplay and about how to get people to play games in the first place. So that's where he came from with Atari. And of course, there was also talking now. This is probably the interrupt me any time, by the way, if you feel like it.
I love this stuff.
So one of the things that also got him interested in games is when he was at is it Stanford? Is that right? I'm trying to think. It was Stanford. I think it was Stanford, and they had the Space War game there. running on their massive supercomputer that was about the size of an airport. It was about the same size as LAX. This computer. Okay, it was that size. Look, yeah, really? Was it that size? No, it wasn't quite that size, but it was quite large. So
the joke was terrible. You got a courtesy.
it wasn't really a joke. I was just seeing what happened. So so this thing had a tiny little round screen, and these guys came up with this space game with real physics on it, and there was a planet, and you orbited the planet, and there were other spaceships flying around and stuff, and actually required quite a bit of skill, and they built a special controller for it, special joysticks and so on, and that influenced basically Bushnell kind of went, I think I can turn that into something that can make money. So he took that, called it something else, and worked with I've forgotten the name of his partner now. Anyway, they built a space game, arcade game, and put that out. This was pre-Pong. Pre-Pong arcade, so
that's awesome.
And then they put these things out into and then so from that, and they made some money out of that, and then this led into Atari, and funding of Atari came from pinball machines, and from tiny amount of money made from the Space Wars game, and then they developed their version of Pong, and then they put Pong into these local places that they had a couple of Space War games, and they put a couple of Pongs in these bars in the Stanford area. And so one day one of the guys, because I think it was called Andy Cap's Tavern, calls up and goes, "Hey, this thing isn't working. Come down and fix it." So the guy goes down there to fix it. I wish I could remember his name. He was like a major big deal programmer at Atari, of course. But so he goes down to fix it. Problem wasn't that it was broken. The money box was full, and it wouldn't take any more money. Says
wow.
And then the guy says, "Yeah, people have been lining up, waiting for me to open, just so they can play Pong." That's how big a deal it was.
It took up my television.
Yeah, really. It is
True.
crazy fun. It's a crazy fun game. And then, of course, they did all those variants on it. They did the brick wall thing, whatever that's called. Breakout. They're all variants on Pong.
Didn't Steve Jobs design Breakout or something? Isn't that true?
No. It's not true. What happened was he had a friend called Steve
Wozniak,
and he said, "Hey, you've seen this Pong game? Do you think you could do one of those?" So Wozniak goes, "Oh yeah, I can do that." So Wozniak builds this bit of hardware with Pong on it, and Jobs shows up at Atari and goes, "Hey, I made this," and this is the legend. Anyway, there are you can repeat these things, but the thing is, there are multiple versions of the story. And having read, been reading up all this stuff to teach my class in the first quarter of this year, I was like, okay, well that's one. And then you read, 5 other accounts, and they're all slightly different from one another. They're all slightly different versions.
I just went to the Breakout wiki page, and it lists designer as Nolan Bushnell for conception, Steve Bristow for conception, and Steve Wozniak for prototype. So it is definitely...
That's right. So the thing that happened with... I can't believe I know all this stuff. So some trivia is just coming out. So Wozniak was tasked with reducing the number of chips they were using for the Breakout game. And so he... I can't remember. He spent a couple of weeks working on it, and he got it down from something like 110 chips down to about 45 or 50.
Uh-oh. Hold on.
What's going on there?
Let's see if
that me? I'm going to turn this off.
I think I can hear myself.
Okay. So, oops. So he got tasked with doing that, and then for whatever reason, it got put on a shelf, and then Wozniak didn't get paid, and then Jobs got paid for it, and there was a fallout, and so Wozniak ended up going back to sort of finish the job. And all these engineers at Atari were standing around scratching their heads going, how the hell has he done this? And it still works, and it plays at the right frame rate, and the gameplay's all there. And so they had tried to reverse engineer it, and they couldn't, and they ended up using more chips by like double the number of chips, and it was like each chip over however many that they made cost it cost like $100,000 if you're not on a run. So each chip ended up adding $100,000 to the cost of manufacturing these things. So hence the desire to get rid of the number of chips.
Wow.
So many chips. So there you go.
Wow.
I mean,
so I'm looking at the chat room, and there are all kinds of consoles being listed.
Oh yeah.
So a lot of people aren't old like us. So there's the Super Nintendo, which are people's first console. Somebody gave a shout out to the Genesis, which I loved myself.
Haven't they just brought out, or aren't they about to bring out like a micro SNES?
Yeah. Well, is it that one or is it the original Nintendo?
It's going to have all the games on it. No.
They did that with the Atari. It's called the Flashback and the Flashback 2.
Right.
I don't care for those. I just get out my 2600 if I want to play Atari games.
Well, not everyone has one of those, though.
Oh, you can come to Ventura right now and go to Seth's Games and Anime and buy 3 of them.
Oh, really?
Yeah. He's got bunches of stuff. You just got to go to the right place.
We use them as doorstops, like old consoles and old Spectrums and Commodore 64s. So we just keep our doors open by wedging a Commodore 64 in the door.
To be fair, it's not going to be the $30 they're going to charge you for this 3/4 version, but the thing about the 3/4 version is it doesn't include all the games. So I think it's not Famicom, but I think it's the Nintendo NES that they're coming out with. Am I correct, Vince? And then it's only going to have 30 games or something. So
that's just $60.
Like that. Yeah.
$60.
But
is it $50? And you don't have to blow in the cartridge. That's just a ripoff.
That's part of the experience there. You need to have that.
Exactly.
It's part of the terroir of the game.
The PlayStation 4 at $400, $300,
Oh,
and then $60 for the games.
yeah. Well, they always get cheap games. Like you were saying, it's the printer cartridge printer thing.
Yeah.
Hey, Vince, I saw you listed the Commodore 64. Is that where you started?
Yeah, I mean, I guess that doesn't count as a game console, but it was my first real experience playing video games. I mean, I didn't know much about programming or messing with computer applications, but I had an older cousin that said, "Hey, pop this floppy disk in there, do load asterisk comma 8 comma 1, get that game running," and 4-year-old me could play a game. I loved that Commodore 64. It wasn't mine; it was my cousin's, but
Nice.
I was over at their place all the time.
I keep muting my microphone. Sorry about the weird pause. Go ahead, Mark.
Commodore 64 did it still use cassette tapes?
You could have cassette tapes, but you could also have the disk drive as well.
I had the 64, the 128, but I started with the VIC-20, and that had cassette tapes for sure.
Yeah.
All that lovely noise going on for 15 minutes while it loaded or not the game.
Our neighbor introduced me to the VIC-20, and he also was he had one of those model railroads, and he had this enormous model railroad.
Oh, yeah.
It was really cool. And so what we would do is start a game and then go play with the model railroad for 10 minutes.
Oh, yeah.
So if you get a VIC-20 today, you better have a model railroad or you're going to get bored, especially in the kind of microwave society we're in.
You don't play with model railroads, you operate them.
Oh,
Not a toy.
I never had one, so I don't have the experience. So what else we got listed? So the NES, Matt BR says it has about 30 games. It's like $60.
That's right.
It has a much better selection than clones that are coming out of other countries. I know that the Flashback and Flashback 2 weren't very good. They only had. Hold on, my computer's trying to restart itself. Jeez, man.
No, don't do it. Don't do it.
Wow. Those automatic updates can be dangerous. I'm glad I saw that. And Chase was saying that Seth's is stealing his money because he can go broke in there with all the stuff. You definitely got to come to Ventura, Seth's Game and Anime, and check out his old selection of games and consoles. So now you go from the Atari to the Intellivision, which was fabulous and still one of the greatest consoles ever made, if not the greatest console. And then you end up somewhere in the Nintendo age, don't you?
Yeah, well, it took a while for Nintendo to really break out. So Nintendo were absolutely, they were almost penniless. They almost went broke trying to make games. They kept on shipping games out to the US. They had a tiny little support team over here, and but I think it was the son-in-law of the CEO of Nintendo who came out here, and you think, oh yeah, nepotism. But apparently the guy did a really good job because he worked tirelessly and ceaselessly to get these things distributed. They had a very dedicated band of people who almost went broke themselves, of Americans, who really believed in Nintendo. Finally, of course, Donkey Kong got sent over, and that was the one that really, turned everything around in no uncertain terms, because people were obsessed with that thing, and they couldn't build them fast enough. And what they ended up doing was they were pulling in all their old arcade cabinets that hadn't done so well into a warehouse in New Jersey, and then repainting the boxes, and then putting in the new chipsets with Donkey Kong on them, and shipping those out, and they literally couldn't keep up with demand. It was like Space Invaders, they were just everybody wanted them, and they wanted them now. So they made a ton of money, and that allowed them to then go on and do all the great things they did afterwards. And they used the same guy who designed what's the name of the guy? God, why am I blanking on names?
Oh, Miyamoto.
Miyamoto.
Yeah, Miyamoto did Donkey Kong.
Miyamoto
First one.
Plus, Miyamoto, not everything that Miyamoto did was fantastic. So, he made a bunch of games that nobody's ever heard of.
E.T.
But he also made all these amazing. That was Atari.
Yeah.
I'm kidding.
That was one poor guy whose name. I think the really amazing thing about the guy who programmed E.T. is nobody knows his name. They all know the story about all the cartridges. They know one guy was given about 5 weeks to build this thing and do all the graphics himself and design it, and then they all got buried in the desert, as we all know. They were all dug up recently. But nobody knows that guy's name. I think it's really tragic. Such a shame. That guy's a bit of a hero, really.
No, for E.T.
What's that?
Isn't that Howard Scott Warshaw?
Oh, is that his name? Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
You know his name.
Vince.
You know more than I do. Okay.
Well, E.T. is actually not bad.
What?
It's not bad if you know how to play it.
Oh,
it's not bad.
Like, do you mean play it with the console off? Bad.
Okay, actually, hold on. On
It's
E.T.,
not a hammer. It's really good.
No. Like in terms of the structure of the game, it's not bad. The big issue is that people have this we have this understanding of, oh, if your feet are touching this hole in the ground, then you fall into the hole. But people would always fall into the ET holes because their head would touch the hole, right? But that was one of a couple of things that oh man, it was about 2 years ago. There was a dude that actually made a mod of the original ET, and you could just patch it, and if you wanted to, put it on a cartridge and play it in the original Atari, and it makes it really quite playable. It's actually a really decent, simple adventure game.
Well, there you go.
Well, good.
I honestly, that's one of those things where I wouldn't believe it unless I saw it. But
Chase likes
I will show it. I will show it to you sometime.
All right.
Yeah.
We'll do it at E3 or GDC.
So yeah, there was something. Oh well, also that was another. By the time E.T. was made, Bushnell was out, and he'd been long out, and he was working on Chuck E. Cheese, and as we all know, and it was Warner Brothers. Warner had taken over, I think, and so it was all these corporate guys from Warner just saying, make games for no money, and they'll just make loads of money for us.
Hey, that's the game industry.
Yeah, but I mean, well, no, it's not necessarily though, is it? I mean, they chuck millions of dollars at games now. But anyway, but certainly back then, they it was kind of like when CBS took over Fender. Like, well, this is furniture, right?
That's exactly what I was relating it to in my brain.
There you go. So I thought that analogy would go down well with musicians. Yeah, yeah, so it was literally I mean, ET wasn't the only one. ET is just the most notorious one. You know, there are plenty of games that were being made for you know,
Hey,
ridiculously low budgets.
to interject, another console I love. This isn't about the consoles Kyle loved. I'm just jokingly insisting that the ones I loved were the best ones, which I do think is true. But anyway, the ColecoVision. When did that happen? Was that 2600 era? Was that in television era? When was that?
Around that time, and then of course that one's got its story as well. And you know, it didn't. Coleco was. I'm trying to remember what their business was before they. I mean, they did something like they made mustard or something. I mean, it's completely unreal.
I'm going to say this. Coleco stands for Connecticut Leather Company.
That's right. That's so they did leatherless. I knew it was something completely unrelated, and I did have that note in my notes when I was teaching my class. Yeah. So wasn't there talk recently of there being a new Coleco game?
Oh gosh, there was. Yes, and it was a horrible fiasco of this shell of a company that got the licensing for the Coleco name, and they were saying, oh, we've got all this technology and whatnot, and they were trying to pass off an old ISA video capture card as their prototype motherboard. You know, it was just a huge fiasco.
Wow.
Didn't somebody just do that with Commodore as well? Doesn't some person own Commodore now?
Oh, man, I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah, the Coleco thing I remember because it happened really recently. But wow,
I didn't follow up on it. I just remember, but you know, we get so many news stories flashing past us these days. It's difficult to keep up. But Microprose, actually, talking of Microprose, which I used to work for, someone bought the name Microprose and they put out these dreadful. Flash games now.
Wait a minute, what? Someone is besmirching the name Microprose now.
Yeah. It's horrible. I only found that out.
Sucks.
I know. There you go.
That's too bad.
I know.
Well, that's so. Where are we at now? Where do we stop? If we do the history of consoles or games or game history.
I think so. So back in the late 70s, when Coleco and Television and Atari were all around, there was another attempt. There was the Atari 5200, and then there was a 70 something. It just kept on going. 7800, is that right? And then there was. This was after Bushnell had left, and I really can't remember the guy's name, but there was an attempt to make a 3D hologram console. And it was essentially overlays that would go over the screen that was built into this console thing, and it used that sort of remember those things you used to be able to get like cards and turn them and you get get some kind of pseudo 3D thing going on. It was something like that was overlaid over the screen, and there are videos online. And but of course it's a video, so all that stuff doesn't really work very well on video. But apparently it was not very good, and there'd be overlays of like cityscapes and flying saucers, and, science fiction type stuff. And I think it's a bit of a non-starter, so they ended up not developing it. It's one of those things where they only ever made 2 prototypes, and they were worth a fortune.
What happened between like 79 and 86? Because 86 was like the 286 at that time, wasn't it? Or maybe the 086 and 86 and the 286 and 88. Well, I know, but the games for me shifted from being, well, first of all, they went from being in a place where I'd go put quarters and stuff to, the Intellivision and stuff like that, and then it shifted to computers at the 286 mark. But what were the consoles between 79 and like 86 when the 286 happened? What was the console then? Was that the Nintendo craze?
No, Nintendo was right at the end of that, right?
Yeah, that would be mid to late 80s. I think what happened with consoles was they kind of died off. There was a big nosedive in popularity for various reasons. People had all, they'd gone out and bought all these consoles. They shifted millions and millions, tens of millions of consoles in the 70s. And people all had them, It's like, I don't want to buy another Guitar Hero because I don't want 50 more plastic instruments in my house, I don't want another load of consoles when we've got all these things at home. So I think there were iterations, like, as I said, the Atari 5200 and so on. but I don't think there was a massive development. And then home computers were coming in, so there was the Apple II, and a couple of others. What else? I think there were Commodore started around then.
Yeah.
And the Radio Shack computers.
Trash 80.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, all that stuff was around. So the home computers were then taking off in the early 80s, and then consoles didn't really make a return until the mid to late 1980s. So you had Nintendo coming in and Sega.
You know what I'm sitting here thinking of? You mentioned the Trash 80. You mentioned we've mentioned Pong and television, ColecoVision, Atari 2600, Apple II. And then, growing up, I had every one of those things.
Yeah, well, my dad was in Saudi, and he came back from Saudi Arabia in 1984 or something with 2 Apple IIes, which he picked up over there. But I think they might have been knockoffs. I'm not sure it's the real deal, but that was the thing about it.
As a kid, I still wanted more. Isn't it funny that our mentality as a kid is that my parents won't get me nothing. now at this age, I go, oh yeah, they got a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, they did.
That's pretty funny. So now we're at the computer age, and then that starts after Nintendo. What happens? Is that Xbox? No, it's PlayStation, isn't it?
Yeah.
PlayStation's not till '94.
Who reigned between '88 and '94? Was that still Nintendo with the Super Nintendo and the 64?
Plugging it out, and then there were various Japanese consoles. Well, they're Japanese consoles. There were smaller ones.
Well, that's true. They have the Neo Geo and the
TurboGrafx.
TurboGrafx.
Thank you.
That's Neo Geo, right? And then, what did Sega have? They came out with something after the Genesis that was a big deal.
Well, before the Genesis, didn't they? Oh, hang on. So the this is the Sega, the Mega Drive and the Genesis are the same thing, right?
Yeah.
What was it?
They had the Master System.
Master System.
Yeah.
That was the one before
It was
the
kind
Genesis.
of around the Nintendo NES era.
Yeah.
What was the white square
kind
one?
of like level pegging it like this, for
The white square one was the TurboGrafx. Well, it was a white square in Japan where it was called the PC Engine. But in America, they called it the TurboGrafx. Oh, the white square, the Sega Dreamcast.
That's what I was thinking of, the Dreamcast.
Oh, well, that was later, yeah, the Dreamcast.
99.
So, wow. What was the thing with Nintendo? Oh, Nintendo was going to be the PlayStation. Sony got together with it. I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but this was sort of the 92-ish, 93 maybe.
Well, I think between 86 and 90, early 90s was certainly I got my Genesis in the early 90s, and I got it from a friend that was used, and then also I got an original NES when he was done with it as well around the 90s. So I think 86 to like 91, 92, wasn't that just a bunch of Nintendo and stuff?
Mm-hmm. Nintendo and Sega, you might as well just put them together and have them boxing. So they were just constantly trying to outdo one another, and they were each other's only serious competition. And there were other companies that put stuff out, but they just didn't stand a chance really against Sega and Nintendo. There's no chance.
Of the consoles that you've mentioned, Mark, and Vince as well, going back, not including Pong, but starting at because that was one game, but starting at the Atari 2600. And moving forward, can you guys pick one game that you love for each one of those consoles?
Gosh, probably not.
Wow.
I used to like the tank game on the Atari.
Oh, Combat.
Yes.
Oh, it was cool.
I'll tell you what, I used to love Battlezone in the arcades. The 3D game with the tanks, the wireframe tanks. I used to have the high score at the one around the corner from when I went to college. There was a little cafe. Oh, you've gone all silent.
Oh, sorry. It was green, right? And you stuck your head in a visor?
Right, that's right, exactly. Yeah. And then there was a military version. You find the military version on YouTube. So, yeah, they got paid a load of money to make a military version that has helicopters.
That can't be anything like running a real tank. You fire a shot, and then it just floats through the air for 10 minutes while you get shot from behind by somebody else.
Well, you weren't very good at it, obviously.
So you like the tank game. So, Vince, give us your favorite 2600 game.
Probably Pitfall.
Oh, that's what I was going to say.
Pitfall was
great.
great.
My favorite. That was awesome.
Yeah, I mean, there's actually a lot of Activision games. Oh, um, yeah. Let's see, Chopper Command. Oh yeah, that was another Activision game. Um, man, there's. Let's see, Pole Position was classic. I actually really like the upgraded Pole Position 2. But that actually came out for the Atari 7800, the sequel console.
Wasn't that the computer programming console with the blister buttons?
No, that's the 800, the Atari 800.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Which is really expensive.
Yeah.
Compared to the Apple, I think.
Yeah, I didn't have one of those. Dad.
What was I going to say about that? Oh, I used to play on the Apple IIe, or the knockoff Apple IIe. Choplifter. Remember Choplifter?
Oh, Choplifter was great.
Yeah, rescuing people.
You know,
such a turnaround.
Defender was my favorite rescuing people game, but I don't. That was just arcade, wasn't it?
No,
No,
they put it out.
that was developed. What was that developed for? Yeah, that's another. That might have been for the Magnavox Odyssey 2, was it?
Oh wow.
I'm trying to remember, but Defender was a breakthrough game actually.
Yeah.
Or I might be misthinking it. They might have converted it for various. I'm sure they did convert it for various.
They did put it out for the Atari 5200, which wasn't a huge success, but Defender on that thing was quite good.
Oh, I love
Defender. Was I'm trying to remember who that was. Was that Midway? I think it was Midway commissioned the programmer, and it was the first game to have one huge. So he had, I think, seven screens that scrolled, and he had all the colours on the screen at once. He had way more colours. I think it was 16 colours, which was amazing at the time. And of course, as people do, the famous quote associated with that was, "No one will ever need more than 16 colours." Just like, why say that and get it recorded? Don't say that into a microphone or write it down anywhere. All right, no one will ever need more than 2 notes.
So let's jump forward. What is your favorite NES game?
See, I'm not an NES guy. I was never really into it.
Well, yeah, because of our age, NES happened when I was in college, which is embarrassing.
I was in the PCs then. So my dad had brought a PC back to Saudi Arabia and left it at my house before going back to Saudi. So we had this PC with Elite on it, the original Elite.
Ooh,
in like colour.
Wow.
So that was great.
I did end up, though, like I said, with a Nintendo, and I'll start by saying my favorite Nintendo game was Batman.
Oh, that was a really good game.
What do you got, Vince? I know you've got a favorite Nintendo game.
Well, I'm not sure. I do have a game that I'm best at, which would be Double Dribble, the basketball game.
Nice.
I loved that game, and I have never been beaten in that game.
Oh, I hear a challenge. Chat room.
Ever. So, actually, there were a few years where I was working at Konami back in the mid-2000s. And, there's some guys there who are also Konami fans. And I mentioned, by the way, I've never actually played anyone that could seriously challenge me in Double Dribble. We tried for an entire day, and no one at Konami could beat me in Double Dribble.
Well, you just got that glove to the face in the chat room. Chase Bethea says, "Let's go."
Go.
I was, and people know about if they know about Double Dribble, they might know about the 3-point glitch where you can do the 100% shot. I will beat people without ever having to resort to that. I'll just go, I will drive to the hoop and dunk all the time, and no one could stop me.
Okay, we're gonna set this up. I want to see this, and I want to film it, and we'll put it on our channel.
Oh man, that would be fun.
What do we need to do that? We need a Nintendo, and we need to put it on a television that has HDMI, so we can film the whole thing into a device, which I have. We can capture the whole video. What do you think? Barbecue my house, Double Dribble?
Hey, why not? Why not?
All right, I'm gonna set that up for September.
And then bring in a Battlezone arcade machine from somewhere, and I'll kick everyone else's ass.
Oh, that sounds fun.
Yeah, I haven't played it for 25 years.
Oh,
but that'll
man.
be fun.
That'll be kind of like me for Double Dribble, because I haven't played Double Dribble in almost 10 years now. So
Okay.
let's see how well I can move, how well I
Okay.
can pass that ball around.
Why not?
Yes.
So, well, that turned real dark and competitive. Let's move on to the Sega Genesis. What's your favorite Sega Genesis game, Mark?
Well, I guess, again, I didn't really play it, but my son had one, so he played Sonic all the time, so it has to be Sonic. My
Oh.
son would turn deep in shades of red and perspire heavily while playing it. And it was just, I think it was largely down to he didn't breathe when he was playing it. He's like 6, 7 years old, and he's just like turning purple. Like, breathe, slap. And I didn't used to. I never slapped my son, all right? I used to blow in his face, and then he'd breathe. Like that. It was unbelievable. So we used to have to drag him off it, screaming. So yeah, Sonic. Probably.
Vince, what is your Genesis game?
Well, let's see. I'm going to steer it towards audio and just say, man, Streets of Rage, the whole series, 1, 2, and 3, had some of the best use of the Genesis audio capability. It was fantastic. Really, really good soundtrack. 1 was great, and 2 just topped it. And then 3 went super crazy. Just really experimental, crazy rhythms, crazy timbres, just really virtuosic FM synth work.
Nice. Nice. My favorite Sega Genesis game was Arcus Odyssey. Did anybody play that?
Rings a bell.
The music
I
was
did not,
fantastic.
actually.
We've talked about that on our previous show. The music
Yeah.
for Arcus Odyssey was written by the same person who did the music for a bunch of classic games, but recently it's a Japanese RPG. It's all medieval, and well, it's not really an RPG. It's Dark Souls, right? What's the name of the composer?
Yeah.
What's his name?
No,
Vince.
no.
Wait a minute, Dark Souls?
Yeah, we talked about it before. Anyway, the music is
Oh, yeah.
fantastic in Arcus
Oh,
Odyssey.
man.
And he's a really amazing Japanese composer. I just can't think of his name. But the Genesis and the Intellivision were hard for me because there were so many that I loved. But I'd have to choose Arcus Odyssey. As for the Intellivision, which I'm just going to do because you guys are going to laugh at me if I mention anything Intellivision. My
That's
favorite
a sports game that uses that IntelliVoice module, right?
You kind of beat me to it.
Yeah.
My favorite was B-17 Bomber, which had
Oh man, okay.
you had to hook up the IntelliVoice module and then plug the game into it, and it was the worst sounding cat torture you've ever heard, but it was so much fun to play.
Did you ever play Chuck Yeager's Air Combat on the PC?
No.
Brilliant. So it had,
he's-
had Chuck Yeager sampled, but it was on the PC speaker. So he'd be playing it, and he'd brief you, and he'd be going, mother sucks cocks in hell. Like that, and you'd be like, what? What did he just say? What? Like that. But you can rewind it and play it again. So you think, they're making this up. He just said something awful. And then, you go and play the game, which was brilliant. It was one of the best flight sims ever, in my opinion. But the sound was just like, really? Why bother? Why bother?
Yeah, I gotta say that the sound for the Intellivision was not the best, but it was still super fun.
I
They
think
also
it's
had a
probably
game-
better than the PC speaker, though. I mean,
PC
the PC speaker,
Oh.
you're first you're using up the whole CPU, and you're devoting it to just one of the worst sounds ever.
Oh my God! I just looked at the time. It's 7:04.
704.
Sorry,
Yeah.
guys. So we should
Gone
probably
by.
start wrapping down, I guess. So how far did we get? We made it to the age of the 286.
So it's the end of the 80s, early 90s.
Yeah.
286 was it.
Not
And then
even halfway.
They got 386, 486, and then the Pentium. So there you go. But just to quickly wrap up, moving into the Sony era, was Sony and Nintendo partnered, and they were going to make the Nintendo PlayStation. And then just as Sony were about to do the big announcement, the guy from Nintendo goes, "Hey, we're going to put out our own console called the what's that? Was it the Nintendo 64? Was that the one that had the CD drive? I can't remember. It was the Nintendo 64, So Sony were like, "What? What's going on?" And they announced that at what's the big CES, I think it was, in '93. So Sony had to kind of rejig everything, but there apparently are 2 or 3 prototypes of the. You can actually find these on YouTube. There are videos of the prototypes of the Nintendo PlayStation, and they have the PlayStation logo and the Nintendo logo on them.
Oh.
They're real things.
Yeah.
It's a real thing, guys. So yeah.
You know, on a game audio point, also there was a the first PlayStation, or I can't say the first, but there was a collection of PlayStations that released a really hi-fi audio engine with their audio hardware in the unit itself. And so there are some audiophiles out there who try to get early PlayStations so that they can get this high-end audiophile components out of it.
Oh
Huh.
yeah. Yeah, it had good audio analog hardware there.
All right. So on that, I'm going to close out the show. You guys all good? Y'all wrapped up?
Yeah.
And it's fun thinking about the early days. You know, people talk about how big the games industry now is, but you know, back then it was really big too. I wanted to mention this earlier, but back in 1981, arcade revenue, just arcade revenue,
Oh man.
was $8 billion
In 81.
in 81.
Mm-hmm.
Damn.
Atari
is-
alone generated something like $1 billion. But, you
Yeah.
I'm responsible for like 500,000 of that in quarters.
know.
Oh man.
Sometimes dimes and nickels if I could trick the machine.
Yeah.
You didn't do the trick of, you know, tying a thread around a washer and then.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Mostly because they would seed, if you will, the arcade in my hometown was called Tilt, which I think became a kind of like there were tilts in all the malls. I can't think of the term right now. I'm
Oh
sorry.
yeah,
guys.
yeah. I
But-
remember Tilt. Yeah.
And anyway, they would seed those places with employees who were the seediest employees. So if you got caught with like the string on the quarter, it wasn't just yelled at and get out of there. It was like throwing water on you, rip your shirt, embarrass you in front of all your friends, and then kick you out. So I avoided any trouble because I didn't want any of that. But anyway, hey, that was a great conversation. Mark, thanks for being on the show.
Welcome.
Mark, are you still doing the class?
Not that class, but I'm teaching pre-visualization, and we're doing advanced level design in Unity. So if you want to pop along, no, you have to sign up. You have to sign up a few weeks ago. But yeah,
But if somebody wanted to get on your next class, where would they go?
they would go to Art Institute of North Hollywood.
North
Oh,
Hollywood.
cool.
Good to hang out with Mark. Mark wrote the game E.T. I don't think anybody knows that. For
I
the
did.
600 did all the art himself. He's a legend in the space, that's for sure. And Vince, it's great to see you. Are you still teaching?
Not this year, but I'm gonna start again next year. Mostly because, this current game I'm working on is taking a whole lot of my time. So.
And you won't even tell us about it, so I'm really mad at you. You won't give me any secrets. Nothing.
It's tough,
I know.
It's a small world, the things.
Well, announce. Let us know the next time. Make sure at one of the shows you let us know when you're set up again, so people can enroll in your class. And as for me, it's going to be barbecue at my house to watch a throwdown between Chase and Vince for what's that game called? Double Dribble.
Oh yeah.
I'm going to set that up for September. We got plenty of room, and I just don't know the date. Let me look at a calendar, and then I'll announce it on Twitter like a few weeks leading up to it, so we can all get together. And
All right. I look at barbecues as a time to win at a bunch of things. So let's see, winning at Double Dribble, winning in the Grill Master Challenge.
we're grilling?
If you've got a pool, winning at the Cannonball Challenge.
No, I don't. No pool. I'll
No
pull
pool?
out a kiddie pool for you to cannonball in.
I will win that. I will win that.
You're gonna break your tailbone, but it'll be funny.
Hey, at least I'll win.
All right, guys, I'm heading out. Thanks, chatties. That was a fantastic show. Thanks, Mark. Thanks, Vince. And man, we are just loaded with people in the chat room. Thanks for joining in. Sorry we've been away so much. We've been just the industry killing us, making us work long nights. You know how it is. But we'll be back next week. I think it's going to be Vince and me again next week. Maybe Mike. I'm not so sure, but it's definitely going to be Vince and me next week. And okay, bye.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.